All right, we're here, Coach Lou here with Garrett Taylor, the free agent signee of the Buffalo Bills, 2015 graduate of St. Chris. Congratulations, Garrett. I got you on here with two of my best SID guys that I've ever had in the history of the program, Joe Brennan, William McDermott, headed to Indiana to continue their career. So they wanted to jump on with you, man, and just ask you about your college career and the Buffalo deal. So I'm going to step on out of the way and let the guys take over.
All right. Appreciate you having me.
Yes,
Hey
sir.
Garrett, we're pumped for you. Really excited. But we want to get like a whole perspective of your whole career. So we wanted to just start with some favorite memories from St. Chris on and off the field.
Oh wow, that's taking it back pretty far. I mean, I would say some of my favorite memories just from St. Chris. I think a lot of it just comes from being around classmates and teammates. Whether that be in the Luck Leadership Building, during free periods, being able to hang out there and, having lunch in the cafeteria or, you know, doing SAC with, a lot of the guys, strength and conditioning, that summer program, coming in, working hard. And then, obviously, I was like a multi-sport athlete at St. Chris. So, I had, a lot of memories from football, but, playing on varsity as a freshman in basketball was a lot of fun for me. Playing out there with guys like, Jermaine, Rodney. So just I would say, sports overall where, where I got some of my favorite memories, just, riding buses to games and, coming back after wins. And if I had to pick one, though, I would say it was my freshman season at St. Chris. My first varsity game ever. I got lucky, right place, right time, took two fumbles back for touchdowns, and then we had a heck of a run and made it all the way to the state championship game. Obviously didn't end how we wanted it to go, but that was quite the way to start off my high school football career. So if it was one memory, I would pick that.
And we got a lot of guys playing college sports this year. It's almost a third of our grade. Could you tell us a little bit about your college recruitment process and what made you eventually end up at Penn State?
Yeah, so luckily for me, I was pretty highly recruited, coming out of high school, which for football at St. Chris was kind of new. We had some guys, kind of go small, D1 AA. I think Thompson Brown was like one of the bigger time recruits out of St. Chris going to Virginia. But we had, me and Ricky there, and we were two pretty highly recruited guys coming out of high school. And so it was interesting, just starting off with the letters and stuff from colleges. And I remember after having a pretty successful, freshman year, I was talking to Coach Turner, who was a coach there before, Coach Cullen, and he thought it would be a good idea for me to, go to a camp over the summer. So me and Ricky went down to the Tennessee camp. I had a really good showing there. And so they're like, put some good sophomore tape out there and we'll get you an offer. And so, my sophomore year kind of took off as well. And I got my first offer like the week before the collegiate game. I still remember that, Coach Turner came out and told me. I called my dad and everything, which was pretty cool. And the way, college football recruiting works is once you get that first time, big D1 offer, they kind of start rolling in. So my first offer was North Carolina. And then after that, it was, the Virginia schools like, UVA, Virginia Tech. And then, some of the bigger schools started coming along, like some of the Big Ten schools, some SEC offers was pretty big for me. And so my recruiting process, luckily, to be highly recruited, I had a lot of options, and, a school I fell in love with initially was Michigan. Big Ten football, that stadium and, the opportunity to go play for, a blue blood program, in my eyes was, a perfect fit for me. But a lot of times what people don't talk about with, college football and recruiting is, the turnover with, coaching staffs. And that can be tough on a kid because you build relationships with coaches and you expect them to be there when you get there. And what happened with me in Michigan is, the head coach, Coach Hope, got fired. And then that kind of led to them, clearing house. So not only did Coach Hope get fired, but, the position coach that recruited me was also let go, and he went somewhere else. So my family and I felt like it was, the best option for me to decommit from Michigan and kind of re-explore my options. And that's when Coach Franklin and his staff, reached out to me at Penn State, and I'd gotten pretty close with them because they were recruiting me when they were down in Vanderbilt. And, he obviously got, the opportunity to come up to Penn State. And so I got a phone call from our defensive coordinator, Coach Pry. And he was like, we still love you as a player, and we think you'd be a great fit at Penn State. So we just want to try to get you up for a visit. And, I went up there for a game, which they lost, which was kind of, a weird experience. Just like, because you want to see the team you're going to be successful, but, they're coming off some rough times. But, I fell in love with the school itself. Just the campus up there is beautiful, and, Beaver Stadium is, a different kind of atmosphere in terms of just, college football. And then I fell in love with that, and, I committed pretty much on the spot. So that's kind of my journey with, my recruitment and, how I ended up at Penn State.
Yeah, and you also had a knee injury going into your senior year of high school. How did that kind of play into the process, and like ultimately sort of like was Penn State like helpful in that, or
Yeah, so I was, obviously, I tore my ACL before my senior season, which was really tough for me, just, mentally, kind of having something like football taken away from me, and, my athletic ability taken away from me. And that's something I've never experienced or had to go through before. But thankfully for me, I had a lot of offers before that happened. I pretty much had all my offers before that injury happened, and a lot of schools were like, pretty much every school, honored their offers. I know a lot of times, injuries can be kind of like a red flag for schools almost. And, sometimes if kids get injured in high school, you'll hear a lot of times, schools pull offers and stuff. But I think a lot of coaching staffs, and especially at Penn State, they had, a lot of faith in, my ability as a football player. And I think that speaks to how they are as a coaching staff too, just them being able to trust that, I was going to be the same kind of player I was before my injury. So they were super helpful, and, actually really reassuring to me that, they still, wanted me, and they still believe that, I could come in and contribute and make an impact regardless of the fact that, I got hurt or not.
Yeah, and that also like kind of plays to the next question, is like the transition from St. Chris, like lifting and sack, and the Luck Leadership Center, like taking classes in Chamberlain Hall, to college. Obviously, for every St. Chris senior, that's something they have to deal with. But on top of playing a Division I, like Big Ten, major college sport, it definitely must have been like stressful at at the start. And how was it like easing into it from St. Chris football to Penn State football?
It was a tough transition, I would want to say, because there's a lot of talent in the prep league. Don't get me wrong, but when you kind of make that jump, you step up to that next level, especially in the Big Ten. Everyone's that good, if not better. Everyone is to my level of athleticism. And kind of speaking on the transition, like with my injury, it's like instead of having 1 year to adjust, I'm basically coming off of 2 years of not playing football, missing the whole season of missing my high school like senior year. That would have been another year to allow me to develop and, kind of, improve my game and my strengths and stuff like that. So, having to make that jump from, basically my junior year of high school football to college football it was pretty tough. But one thing I do really like, one thing I did notice when I got up there is like, because of sack and stuff, I was ahead of a lot of kids just in terms of just my strength and my technique too. Cause, in sack, we power clean, hang clean. I know Shad and Blanton were, really big on making sure our squat technique was right, getting our depth, and stuff like that. And, I got up to Penn State and, some guys were having to spend, 2 or 3 weeks in the summer just learning how to properly hang clean or power clean, while I was able to come in and, you know, go full go from the start. So that's something that, St. Chris definitely helped with, and something I didn't know was going to be an advantage, but it was really obvious when I got there. But in terms of like transitioning to school, like it was so funny to me because you hear it all the time. Like kids come back and you're like St. Chris is harder than college, blah blah blah, this and that. Like, but it's true. Going from freaking taking, I think, AP English to like doing your gen ed classes in college, it's a huge difference. And like, so for me, like the classroom part was like easy. Like the classroom part was almost like a de-stressor for me. My college year it was the one thing that I knew that I had a lot of control over, and something that wasn't really stressing me out. So I think St. Chris was obviously super helpful with that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Garrett, let me break this down for you. Your freshman and sophomore year, you had a total of 14 tackles with 2 passes defended. Just your junior year alone, you had 71 tackles with 7 passes defended, 3 picks, and a forced fumble. How do you make that big of a jump?
I think that just speaks to like trust in the process. One thing a lot of guys, the hardest part of transitioning in college football is like you come in and you expect to play right away because that's just kind of the belief you have in yourself and your abilities. But sometimes it doesn't work out like that. I got there and I redshirted my freshman year. So I was on scout team, helping out our first team offense and, giving them looks, which is a humbling experience. And then, my next year, I'm trying to compete for a spot, but that didn't work out. So, I wasn't in the rotation at corner, and I was a special teams guy. And it was nice to be able to, get out there and get snaps on special teams, but you obviously want to contribute on defense. And same thing kind of happened my sophomore year, and I had a position change. Like I got moved from cornerback to safety, which is kind of like another, I guess if you want to call it a roadblock or another hurdle I had to get over. But something I was super big on was trusting the process. And a lot of times we talked about like preparing like you were a starter. Like, so even if I wasn't getting reps during games, or even if I was on scout team or not getting that many reps in practice, I was in my playbook a lot. I was studying film a lot. I was, making sure I still got, extra reps over the summer, extra reps in the weight room, staying late, catching jugs, stuff like that, to prepare like for that opportunity that, say someone got hurt in a game, if I would be ready to come in and play right away. And then that jump you saw from that sophomore year of kind of getting like trash time to my junior year, I had the opportunity to compete for a starting job in camp. Nothing's handed to you. It was me and another guy, kind of going back and forth. And, something our safeties coach is really big on is just, consistency and accountability. So I think those 2 years where I wasn't playing and I was, in my playbook and, doing things to kind of prepare me for that opportunity really helped me out. Because, I was out there, I knew what I was doing. I could play fast. I was comfortable playing within our framework of our defense. And so, I had a really good camp. And then, once I got out there, on the field. Like that first game is kind of like it's pretty nerve wracking. Just like actually playing like on defense for the first time in front of like 100,000 people, and the game's a little fast. But after like 2-3 games, the game slowed down for me, and it felt like I was in high school again. And that's when you can go out there and play and have fun. And I think I was able to do that, and I think that's where the huge jump you saw from my sophomore to junior year.
And then
Yeah.
You got it there.
All right. That position change, was that like more of your decision, or was it the coaches who sort of pushed for that? And like, how was that process for you? Was it easier than you thought it would be, or harder than you thought it would be?
It was a lot easier than I thought it would be, honestly, because coming out of high school, some schools were recruiting me as a safety. Some schools were recruiting me as a corner. So, from the start, I kind of had an idea that a lot of schools or programs could see me playing safety. But in terms of it, whether it was my decision or the coaches, I mean, you don't really have much say in that. And plus when they brought it up, you want to be, a selfless, you want to be a team guy. And you also, that's another part about, committing to a school. You got to believe that, the coaches are making decisions in your best interest. Like, it's not like they were moving me to safety, like that was going to do any harm to me. Like, they obviously saw something in my game and my skill set, and they, connected the dots into me to that being better at safety than at corner for me. So when I found out, I had a meeting with Franklin, our defense coordinator, and the safeties coach, and they kind of did the rundown on why they thought I should move to safety, why they thought it would be a good fit, and I was on board from the get-go. So it was a pretty easy transition. The hard part was just not having to relearn the defense, but you have to know a lot more at safety than you do at corner. I mean, corners basically know their job and their job only, but at safety, you got to know what the corner's doing, what the linebackers are doing, what the D-line is doing, and you got to be able to make checks and calls. So it's a lot more of a mental load, I would say, than at corner, but I think that was the hardest part of the transition.
Do you think playing for Penn State helped you in the long run? Being a captain your senior year, applying for an elite and intense program?
Yeah, I mean, I think, playing at Penn State was, very beneficial for me. Like you said, it's a big time, college football program. And, I think just the coaching staff and that environment was somewhere where for me, I could go and thrive and, reach my full potential. So yeah, I think being at Penn State and, being up there in that environment around those teammates and those guys, and, being able to go out every week and, compete against the best, really did help me out in the long run. I think it prepared me for, this next opportunity coming up.
So with no combine invite, no pro day, no senior bowl, was that frustrating? And how'd you try and get scouts' attention?
Yeah, that was tough. Obviously, personally, I felt like I had put on tape, over 2 years of being a 2-year starter, enough of a resume to kind of get that attention or get that recognition. But, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, and you can't control that. And that was big for me, just, taking that mindset of just controlling what I could control. It was tough, going down to Florida, training for 2 months, and then, pro days canceled. But, you find a way around everything. I threw up a video of myself, doing the bench press test. And then, I ended up videotaping some, defensive back drills, and my agent and I sent that out to teams and whatnot. So I think it was frustrating, but, once I kind of took that mindset of just, worrying about what I can control, it made it a lot easier to navigate through that, but it definitely wasn't, an easy experience.
Yeah, and so like on top of that, like you said, you went down to Florida to train for 2 months. How did that, how do you think that prepared you? I know it was basically preparing you for combine like drills and for pro day stuff, but did you notice like any drastic improvements in that? And how right now are you preparing yourself for the NFL and training camp and stuff like that?
The biggest, you know, thing that was different about, you know, when I got to go down to Florida to train was that I was solely worried about football. Like, it's hard sometimes when you're, you know, working out and having to worry about class and, you know, having to worry about all this other stuff at school. And that's what comes with the territory of college football, and you get used to it and it gets easier. But, you know, for the first time to be able to, you know, be fully, you know, dedicated to my craft and like focus 100% on, you know, football and, you know, preparing for my pro day and doing that only, it was a lot easier to see improvements, especially in that short amount of time. Because, you know, and the resources too are a lot greater, I would say. You know, they were bringing in, you know, physical therapists, you know, they would bring in a team of massage therapists, you know, stretch you out, massage, stuff like that. We had, you know, meal prep meals that, you know, chefs were cooking, and we got sent that to us like every week. And so that was, you know, really different for me. And especially, you know, one big thing was like sleep. Like, they were honest about sleep a lot, you know, asking us, you know, weekly, you know, how much sleep we were getting a night, making sure we were getting enough rest. Because if you're pushing your body like that daily, if you don't get rest, you're either not going to improve or you're going to hurt yourself. But just in terms of like the training itself, you do a lot of the same stuff. Nothing's like too drastically different. A lot of it is technique based. Like, you can shave off, you know, tenths of like hundreds or tenths of a seconds and different drills just based off of like technique. Like, for example, in like the 5-10-5 shuttle, or the short shuttle they call it, you know, a really big thing when we were training is just, we talked about like loading your edges. Like, so whatever way you're going, like loading the edges of your feet to go that way so you could get, you know, positive shin angle instead of starting flat-footed and then moving. And so that will save you, you know, a couple tenths of a second. And it is little stuff like that, you know, that really, you know, makes a difference. That it's not getting that much stronger, because it's hard to get that much stronger in 2 months, but little technique stuff like that helped a lot.
So you get signed by the Bills, which is awesome. Were you a little bit more excited because so that's somewhere that you could come in and have an impact? Is that what you're looking to do immediately, or climb through special teams?
You know, I think I was super excited to go with the Bills. First, because, you know, their safeties coach, we had been in contact a lot, you know, leading up to the draft and during the draft, and he seemed like, you know, a coach who was genuinely interested in being able to coach me, and he seemed genuinely excited about, you know, my skill sets and what he thought he could do with me. So that was, you know, really important for me. And their system is a good fit for me as well. And right now, you know, their two starting safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, are like considered probably one of the best safety duos in the league right now. And so he saw me, you know, kind of playing that same position and same role as Jordan Poyer did, and kind of being able to get molded into, you know, what he is today. So, you know, going there and being able to learn from those guys is going to be pretty exciting for me. And I think right now, just like, I know that, you know, kind of my way in and my niche is going to be special teams. And I'm excited about that. You know, a lot of guys last a long time in the league playing special teams. So, you know, I'm ready to compete and try to contribute there. And then, you know, once that happens, you know, I'll be able to, you know, continue to, you know, compete and fight to try to get in the rotation, you know, in the safety room. But, I think the Bills are, a great organization. I think they're putting a lot of pieces together, to be able to make a run here. So just to kind of be a part of that, and, all the things I said before, I think that's all why I'm really excited.
Yeah, and right now it's like really like up in the air whether there even will be like a training camp or not. So what are some ways that like you're going to be able to sort of get yourself to stand out, even if you have to end up doing like drills from home and stuff like that, anything that they send you?
Yeah, like so right now, I think this upcoming weekend would be like rookie mini camps, and we're doing that virtually over iPads with just like meetings and stuff like that and board work. And thankfully I have a place to train right now. So, I've been doing my best to, stay in shape. Because that's gonna be big. We're pretty much probably gonna have to go, right into camp. And you're going to really be able to tell the difference between guys who have been preparing the right way and, maybe guys who haven't been. And, that's somewhere where I can get a leg up as well. But yeah, I think just a way that's I'm going to be able to stand out is, the second I can get my hands on the playbook, and that just like, really, diving into that, head first and making sure, I have as much understanding as I can of the playbook before I get up there. So, once we start learning and once the bullets start flying in camp, I'm already comfortable with it, and I can play fast and play comfortable in terms of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a silly question, but one thing like I've sort of been interested by is like the food situation. I know obviously it was different at Penn State where you guys have like meal plans and stuff like that. So what have you been like doing at home, sort of trying to?
Yeah, nutrition is a big part of, staying in shape and, being ready. So I've been trying to, eat as healthy as I can, and, whatever I can get from the grocery store, like, chicken, rice, vegetables, stuff like that. I'll try to get my hands on that and, cook myself some meals for the week, and stuff like that. I'm at home with my parents right now. So, obviously, having their help with that has been, really important just because I'm kind of like in an in-between right now. But yeah, food-wise, just I've been eating super healthy. And that's something that you kind of have to make, or not force yourself, but you got to get yourself into that habit. Because while you can eat what you want, when you do start eating healthier, it makes that much bigger of a difference in your performance and stuff like that.
Last one that we really have is any advice you'd have for St. Chris athletes trying to excel at the next level and beyond?
Like any of like my biggest advice is just like work. Like I think that's something I took a lot of pride in when I was at St. Christopher's, and I think Coach Lewis could vouch for me. Like I think I was probably one of, if not the hardest working guys, in the weight room and practice or on the field. You know, my kind of thing I tell myself, a lot of times is like, don't ever let anyone outwork you. Um, because if you put in the work, nothing is guaranteed. Like nothing's promised. Like you can work hard all you want, and stuff can not work out. That's just the way stuff happens sometimes. But if you do work hard, and if you do, push yourself to, work harder than anyone else, that's going to give you the best chance for when your opportunity does come to be prepared for that. And it's going to give you a leg up against other people, because a lot of people are willing to do the work when it's easy, but when it starts to get hard, or once you get a week into or two into that routine, is where a lot of guys, kind of tail off, I would say. So I would say, don't let anyone outwork you. And when it gets hard, or when you think it might start to get boring or monotonous or something like that, keep doing it, because it's going to pay off at some point.
The only thing I want to say is, Garrett, just so you know, there are 14 number one picks in the Hall of Fame, but 17 undrafted free agents.
Yeah, I screenshotted that. I got that on my phone already. So Using that as a little bit of motivation.
Love it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's been cool. I'm hoping I can get back to St. Chris soon someday. I know I was supposed to come back and speak, I think in a middle school chapel actually, but obviously with the virus and stuff that didn't work out. But hopefully I can get back soon and get around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.